Hello, it's me, Kezia Noble, and welcome back to another great show on UK Now. Today we'll be taking a long, hard, possibly even painful look at the British economy, as it is now, as it once was, and how it might look in the not-too-distant future. We'll also be discussing how the economy seems to be benefiting pensioners and the boomers whilst failing the younger generation. We'll be discussing the cost of living crisis, the pros and cons of cryptocurrency, and ask whether it really is the game changer so many believe it to be. Joining me today is former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, and current affairs commentator and host of the podcast Bruce Unfiltered, Bruce Hamil. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show.
Hello.
Let's get started. Right, so I want to talk about the 2022 budget, which you are responsible for, I believe.
Exactly. Well, yes.
Personally, great budget.
Okay.
I loved it. That was what I call a real conservative budget. And in my opinion, the problem was the ridiculous overreaction from the markets.
So I think that you're right. I think there was an overreaction, but at the same time, we did everything at such a breakneck speed. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything was so fast. Mm-hmm. And actually, we should have taken a bit more time. Mm-hmm. And now I notice with budgets, they just leak everything ahead of time. Because
is that a new thing? Because as I was just going to say, this is not the first time that the markets have overreacted. So if you take Margaret Thatcher, the same thing happened to her. It was in the 1980 budget. The difference is, though, she did stick to her economic policies. Whereas I feel like Liz Truss, she was almost bullied into having to change the policies. And so despite the overreaction from the markets with Thatcher, it proved that her policies were correct. And I think sometimes people need to just keep on at it, stick through it. And
I think there's a lot to be said for that. Mm-hmm. So you look at someone like Donald Trump, he very rarely backs down. Mm. Or if he does back down, like he did on the tariffs, he just does it again. And I think that there was a panic, definitely, after the market reaction. I remember, and I've talked about this before, I was on the flight from Washington to London, and people were saying, you're going to get sacked, you're going to get sacked. And I thought, why would she do that? Because then she's dead. It was obvious to me that the moment I was sacked, she would have, I thought 3 weeks. In the end, it was 6 days. So I was sacked on the 14th of October, and she announced on the 20th that she was out. And then on the 25th, Rishi Sunak came in. It was literally 11 days.
Oh, I don't understand. It was a conservative budget. It was a good budget.
Yeah, it was a good budget. Yeah, it was a good budget. The proposals were good.
Yeah.
So
they kept the corporation tax down, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and you were going to reduce
income
tax to 19%.
That's right. That's right. It was a bit too fast. So what they do now is that they leak everything so that the market absorbs stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas with ours, they said, oh, well, the market didn't know about it. But the other thing that we had a problem with was the energy intervention. So there was a huge amount, people forget this, but we'd announced about a week before the budget, the mini budget, we announced a massive energy intervention, basically a price cap. And that cost billions and billions. Mm-hmm. And the market thought, well, you spent billions on, essentially paying people's bills, energy bills. And now you're going to put billions in tax cuts. And so they puked. They went, ugh, we don't like it. Mm-hmm. And then once that happened, there was this whole kind of, circus essentially. And then I went to Washington. They said, do you want to go to Washington or not? And I had a choice. I knew that if I went to Washington, I'd be vulnerable because there'd be people plotting and scheming. But at the same time, if a British Chancellor of the Exchequer doesn't go to Washington to the IMF, that's a big deal as well. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it was kind of damned if I did, damned if I didn't. Then when I went there, the number 10 kept calling me and said, you've got to come back, you've got to come back. And I'm like, no, it finishes on Saturday or Friday, whatever it was. And then I can fly back on Saturday. He goes, no, you've got to fly back now. Mm. So it was a day before the IMF thing was supposed to finish. And it was like, this is weird. Why would you, if you're trying to project some degree of authority and calm, you shouldn't try and inflame the situation. Anyway, I thought the situation was inflamed. Mm-hmm. I got called back. I was told, I read on Twitter, Stephen Swinford's Twitter, he's a Times journalist, that I'd been sacked. And I didn't know about that. I'm like, and my special advisor was like, is this true? And I went, if it's Steve Swinford, it's true. Because I knew he was their point-to man when we were in government. Don't know what's the case now. But whenever number 10 wanted to leak anything, they always went to him. He's a political reporter at the time. So when I read that, I thought, okay, it's done. So I was driven in a convoy from Heathrow to number 10. I was called in. The PM, Liz, is crying and says, you're going to have to go. And I was like thinking, but if you sack me, they're going to ask you in the press conference, because she had a press conference afterwards, which did not go well. Well, if he's there to do what you wanted and you've sacked him, why are you still there? I said, that's what they're going to ask you. Yeah. And do you know what? That's exactly what, she had a press conference that lasted around 9 minutes. And that's exactly what they did ask her. And then the whole thing just fell apart. And then and I said...
She needed to man up. I'm going to say it. I think she needed to man up. Thatcher had to go through the same thing.
Yeah, she would have stuck to it.
And she stuck to it.
She would have stuck to her guns. Yeah. I mean, I think she wasn't very good under pressure. I mean, some people are.
But you have to be. If you're Prime Minister, you have to, as number one, you have to be good under pressure.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it got to her. I think that if we'd stuck up, there was a way we could have toughed it out. I said, actually, if we get to the new year, this whole thing will reset.
It's just panic. And we're living under this kind of, I feel like since COVID, it's just been panic stations for anything that happens.
And
I think so much with social media also.
That's right. I think it's panic stations from the government and caution from the banks and the institutions. Which then when you try and
but the
push
social
something,
media, Thatcher didn't live in a world of social media.
True.
I mean, look at the biggest disaster electorally in the campaign was when Rishi Sunak left D-Day during the course of the election campaign. It was the 80th anniversary.
Yeah.
They're literally 100-year-old veterans. And he buzzed off. And that was totally... the fact that he had to say sorry was a function of social media.
I always felt...
People went bananas.
If I'm going to put my conspiracy hat on, I felt that it was almost planned, all of this, to get him out and get Labour in. That press conference where it's raining and he looked like a drowned rat.
Well, I
was like, come on. Even the most basic PR team would have said to him, this is not a good look, Rishi.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But I would resonate with that, going back to even yourselves, Kwasi, and Liz. Obviously, how much of that did you guys, how much of it came to the 1922? How much of it was done in the background? Was it that you guys just turned around one day and said, you know what, we're going to shake things up, and they totally kicked back again?
So I think there was a bit of that. I think there was... The other thing that you have with Conservatives is that it's a very broad church.
Yes.
So there are a lot of Tory MPs who didn't want to do Tory things. And I was very clear that if you're going to have tax cuts, you're going to have spending restraint. Because the welfare bill, as we saw 2 weeks ago,
we're going to get
is getting out of control.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of MPs, Conservative MPs, were like, no, you can't cut benefits.
Why can't they go to Lib Dem or something? This is a problem with the Conservative Party. It's too much of a broad church. You're keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, and so that means essentially you can't do anything. You can't actually do anything to change anything.
That's why I never voted Conservative.
Well, this is the thing for me where I think obviously we talk about the Tories and the Conservatives, the conflated names, because obviously they were originally the Tory party. But I think people associate Tories as kind of the institutionalised MPs. Your public school boy, and then there's the Conservative
Nothing wrong
element.
with public schools.
No, of course there's not at all. But it's that to the normal working class person, it's that persona of a Tory. And then there's a very big difference between a Conservative, small c.
Yeah.
So would you agree that the Conservatives have gone too far Tory, if we use that as a definition,
so look,
and there's not enough Conservatives?
I think you make an interesting point. So the Tories, a lot of us grew up in the kind of 80s and 90s, and there was that, what was he called? Alan Bastard. Do you remember that? He was called the New Statesman anyway.
Yes,
And he was this caricature of a Tory MP. He had a big blue rosette. He's called Bastard. I mean, he was not a very nice man. And a lot of people in the country think of the Tories as sort of selfish, elbow, trying to socially aspirant, trying to make money on the take, on the make, all of that stuff. So there's a lot of cultural baggage with that word Tory.
Yeah.
No, I think that's how we used to see the Tories. I see Tories now as I just see them as another form of New Labour.
Well, look, so that's the Tories.
Too much of a centrist.
And then I think Cameron. I like David Cameron.
I didn't mind too much. Yeah,
but he basically tried to rebrand it as a kind of centrist party.
Yes.
Because and he called himself, which I couldn't believe. He said he was the heir to Blair, and I'm like, if you're the heir to Blair, why not just join Labour?
That's why I say
there
about
was all
half
of that, and the Tories. We were trying to be centrist, and the other problem we had is, if you've got 5 leaders over 10 years and they each have their own style, you don't have any definition at the end.
No.
It's like, well, what are you about?
Yeah.
You know,
and it literally went from Cameron to finishing up with Sunak, with May and Truss thrown in there at particular
and
points.
Boris, you know. So the whole thing was...
Do you see why now people, and this is kind of my next topic, are voting for reform now? Because they are like how at least Conservatives were maybe in the 1980s.
Some people think that. But a lot of people...
I'm a reform candidate now, so I've never...
on the council?
And I've never voted Conservative for the council,
Yeah, I think a lot of former Conservatives, a lot of people like you who have never voted.
I've never voted Conservative. Yeah.
Some of them will have voted Labour. Look, I get it. I mean, what people are looking at, they look at Britain, they compare to Britain maybe 30 years ago.
That's what I do.
People
yes.
my age, and they think, what has gone wrong?
Yes, I remember a better time.
Yeah, they've got that in their memory.
And it's not nostalgia. I mean, I can actually tell you what I went through and how I could get a same-day GP appointment.
Sure.
How kids there was no catchment areas. You could get parking spaces. There was less traffic.
Dentists.
House prices were cheaper.
Sure.
It was just a better...
So you don't think it's a rose tint? I mean, some of it is rose tinted. It's not rose tinted.
I mean, the only thing that's better since then is like, obviously, there was more racism in those days. There was more homophobia, you could say. The streets weren't as clean in some places. The underground looked grubby. There were certain things where, you could look at the 90s and go, wasn't all perfect.
No.
But I do believe that you had a better quality of life on the whole, and you had something which was called aspiration then, because children knew that if they worked hard, if they went to school, got a good career, they could afford a house, they could afford a home. So what I'm trying to say is the important things were better then. The unimportant things now might be better, but the important things were better then.
And that's a lot of people think that, and they look back and they say, we've had 25 years of Labour Conservative, roughly, and we don't like where we've ended up. So, and a lot of the stuff, because I was in government, COVID, that came out of nowhere. You can debate about how we dealt with it.
The reaction was over the top.
Maybe, but at the time it was scary. We had to do something.
I wasn't scared.
A lot of people were. And so they look at modern Britain, they think there's mass migration, borders out of control, public spending has gone through the roof, but services aren't any better, tax is going through the roof. And they look at all of this and think, how do we get out of this?
We need change.
We need change, and they opt for reform. I don't think reform have got the answers. I mean, I know Nigel well. I know a lot of his team. They've got a lot of time. They've got 3 years. But as of now, they're not the finished article by any measure.
For me, they're saying all the right things.
Yeah, but they don't have any experience of government. I mean, what's going to happen?
Doesn't matter. You have to start somewhere.
It does matter.
But we haven't, because we've had Conservative and Labour who have a lot of experience of being in government, and they've made,
they've messed things up. You would say that.
So I want actually somebody who's fresh, has all that backlog of kind of experience.
But the reality is, if they get into power, they're going to have to deal with the civil service. They're going to have to deal with all the institutions.
All this has to change.
But
that's where I would.
But they just can't go in. They're not going to go in and just sweep everything.
But what you're doing, sorry, I will come to you and say, what you're doing is what everyone does when they were in a position of power. But you can't do it. You can't do this. You can't do that. But if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way. And you can laugh at that and think it's very simplistic.
It is very simplistic.
It's not. If you want to change things, you can. That's what Thatcher did. She changed things, okay? And we can change things.
But you've got to work within the civil service. You've got to work within
the framework. But if you're already saying, I can't do it...
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a way. And I talk to reform people about this. They're not going to just suddenly turn up and snap their fingers and everything's going to change. They're going to have to talk to civil servants. They're going to have to talk to the machine, all of that.
Fine.
And they need to know how that works. That's all I'm saying. And then the problem they'll have, I suspect... And I wish that if they do win, I wish them all the will in the world, because I'm a patriot. I want Britain to succeed and do well. Yeah. But the problem they'll have is what Labour had when they came in. They got about 34% of the vote, and then within about a year they were down to 20%.
Yeah, but I think that's the public reaction to the fact that the vast majority of people that voted for Labour figured they were a change to the Tories.
Yeah.
And we see it in the polls. 47% of people 2 months after the election pretty much turned around and said the only reason they voted for Labour was to get the Tories out. Simple as that. And a lot of that vote, as we see in the complete downshift of their polling, is because people have woken up and realised that it's just a continuation.
But it isn't. They're worse. I mean, there's
exactly. It's worse.
I mean, talking about the mini budget, we tried to cut taxes. That was the main thing. Now the taxes are going up and up and up. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, the last year, her first budget, she put them up 40 billion. £40 billion. Most of that was on businesses. you know, small businesses.
Businesses like mine, which we didn't get any help during COVID. We had no help, and then we were penalised by, guess who first? The Conservative government under Rishi Sunak with Hunt, who put a corporation tax up to 25% after everything small businesses have been through.
That's right. And then the other thing that they put that.
Why is it so anti-business? Why are Labour and Conservative become so anti-small business?
The problem that reform will have, and this is my view, having been there in 2 iterations, the Treasury have a certain way of thinking. You've got 5,000 civil servants roughly in that building, whatever. You've got like maybe 5 MPs who run it, the Chancellor, the Chief Secretary, whatever. And so there's very much a corporate view. And they basically tell whoever's in power, oh, we've got to spend this much, and in order to spend however much you want to spend, you've got to raise taxes by this much. And this is the ratchet that we've been going down, which I can't stand, because high taxes mean that we're not going to grow the economy. I mean, that's obvious to me. But, you know, Reeves said £40 billion, and then this year it was 26 billion. And she lied about the premise of the tax rise, because she said, oh, there's a black hole, we're very constrained. And what she wanted to do was be a full socialist and, you know, Robin Hood style, tax the rich to pay for the poor. And the poor in this instance were generally people who were on benefits. So they've got no incentive to work, because they're getting increases, which everyone who works is paying for. It's completely crazy. And I think that it's unsustainable. And they think it's unsustainable.
It is unsustainable, which goes on to my next point, which is linked to this. We need to talk about what we're not allowed to talk about often. Do you agree that the rich and poor divide is partly because of the fast-growing ageing population that we have? Because when you talk about benefits, a lot of this welfare actually is going on pensions.
A lot of it is.
And it's now a case of the haves and have-nots, and it's increasingly becoming a generational divide.
Sure.
Most boomers I know, we're not talking about a little old man who has nothing and he's living in his little, you know, rented room in a high-rise flat. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the average kind of person who's like 70 plus. You know, they are doing pretty well. They bought a semi-detached house back in 1988 or something for 40,000. It's now 1.2 million. They've got a nice,
in some instances,
they've got a nice pension which keeps getting topped up all the time. And what's happening is it's unsustainable, because the younger generation, they're walking out. They can't afford these taxes.
Sure, they can't.
The immigrants that are coming in who are doing low wage jobs, we're just topping up their benefits. So I want to know how it's unsustainable.
So, I mean, I look back at when I was constituency MP in Spelthorne, and I totally understand what you're talking about. You get a 65-year-old guy, he might have bought his house 40 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. And it's, as you describe, the value is probably in there, it's probably about 600,000, but they would have bought it for 20,000, 30,000, all the rest.
They've made a tidy profit.
So they made a tidy profit. And it's very hard for their equivalents, you know, 25, 30-year-old to buy that house, because it costs so much. So, but what are you going to do? You can't penalise pensioners because they've bought their own properties and they paid them off.
It's not penalising, it's about being fair. So obviously you want to cut benefits for people who refuse to work. I mean, this is the number one priority. I know that for foreign-born people coming here, of course. But there is a conversation that needs to be had about the state pension. It is costing a lot. And why can't we just do a case by case? You know, for instance, even the winter fuel allowance. Why can't we look at it and think, like, for instance, my father, he's a millionaire. He's a millionaire. He has his own house. He doesn't have to work anymore. And he's just getting an increase every year on his pension. In fact, it's 4.8% per year. It's being increased. And he's got a house. He doesn't have to pay rent. He doesn't have to work. He's got a lot of money to go on holiday. I'm just giving my father as an example.
The argument, I would say, and we've got to look at the whole thing in the round. We've got to look at pensions. We've got to look at benefits. But your father, presumably, has paid tax every year he was working. He's put some money into the system.
Yes.
And the reason why people...
I'm not saying take away the pension or anything.
No.
Of course,
you're
I'm not
right. We should
saying
look at it. But the reason why people get exercised about welfare is that they haven't put a penny into the system.
Which is far worse. I agree. No. This is not up for dispute. That is worse.
That is, but I'm just saying, it's not sustainable.
But if you look at how much the pension is costing, and there's so many very wealthy older people. When I go on holidays and stuff, the theatres, the restaurants, the planes, they're all full of people who are 70, 65-year-old plus. They've got a lot of money, and a lot of young people, they feel like, well, why am I topping up? somebody that doesn't have to pay rent, they're mortgage free. I mean, look at these statistics. Approximately 76% of adults aged 70 and over live in a property which is their owned outright, so mortgage free. And in their 40s, it's 15%. It's tragic.
Yeah, but look,
it can't continue this.
But it's just simple numbers. I mean, if it takes 25 years to pay off a mortgage, there are very, very few people.
I think a lot of those people, when they were in their 70s, had already paid off the mortgage in their 40s and 50s because it was so much cheaper, the property.
It was cheaper, but the fact that they're older means they're more likely to have paid off the mortgage because it takes that much time. I get the point you're making.
It's an ageing population. They're living for longer, which means that, it sounds horrible what I'm going to say, but obviously they're living for longer. They're going to be in the properties for longer.
Sure.
So,
but they're going to still have to pay, now mansion tax. They still have to pay council tax.
Well, mansion tax, or 2 million. Come on, not many of them.
Saying, okay, or they're going to have to pay council tax. They still have to pay, and a lot of them downsize, which is the right thing to do, I think, in that instance.
I know bungalows are going through the roof now.
But that's
apparently.
the thing. The thing is going back to what Kezia said there. It's the increase in house prices, which are now 8 to 9 times more than what they were in the 90s.
Sure.
So you've got a generation of workers, youth workers, who are having to wait till they're 30 to 40 years old before they can even reasonably afford.
Yeah.
Most. If you look at they're saying now that the national average income that you need to literally tread water is between £60,000 and £70,000 a year.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Considering in the 90s, it was probably more like 27 to 30.
Yeah.
So it's a massive increase in what you need just to tread water. So you're talking, and I think it's £85,000 for a couple with 2 kids living in a house. Sure. So look at national minimum wage.
Sure.
That sits at what, 25 grand a year? So you've got 2 people doing normal working jobs, which probably equates to about 2 to 3 million people in this country.
Yeah.
If they're coupling up together, they're 30 grand below the threshold to actually be in any position, especially if you start taking rent and mortgage payments into that. How are they saving? How are they contributing to the extra contributions to a pension, which they will not have?
There will be no pension at some point.
Anyone under 40.
So there are 2 things. The first thing that they're going to do is raise the retirement age.
Oh,
good. That's good.
Yeah, because people are living a lot longer.
Yes, and a 60-year-old 20 years ago is not a 60-year-old now.
People are going to go nuts when I say this, but it's just a fact. Being 65 now is not the same as it was in 1980.
Yeah, of course
Natural
not.
creep, it's going to happen.
Yeah, so and that's a big saving actually. If you start the retirement age at 67, for my generation, I'm 50 today. 50, not my birthday, but I'm 50 now. I'll retire. I'll be eligible in 17 years, so it's 67.
You can't imagine it, can you? It's like you're too young still.
Yeah, exactly. But that's one way. And then the other thing we have to do is just build a lot more houses. And that's something that
they've worked out. You can keep building houses, and they are building houses a lot.
You've got to increase the supply. You've got to increase the supply of housing.
But it's okay. So you've got the aging population, which is why yes, you do need to increase the house building. But it's also because of immigration. I mean, that's true. That's a huge part of it. That's putting the pressure.
Yeah, let's be honest about that.
Come on.
And that was, I think, one of people go the mini budget, this, that, and the other. I think the big fail that the Tories had was on immigration.
Oh God, yes.
That's the thing that's,
In 1987, do you know what net migration was into this country?
30,000?
8,000.
8,000
in 1987. In 2023, it was 1.2 million, the Great Boris Wave.
Well, I've got another staggering statistic for you that I can drop off the top of my head. It's around about 1976. The population of the United Kingdom between 1976 and 1997 rose from 56 million to 59 million. Under Blair to today, or consecutive governments, it's rose 11.8 million.
Yeah, it's insane.
And most of that is from immigration.
Because we're all the same age. So, we grew up in a world where the UK population was 55 million.
Yes.
I remember when I was that was the figure.
When everything was good.
When everything was good, because there was less demand and less pressure on everything.
That was the figure. And now, you're quite right, it's probably about 70 million.
I went through a declining population phase. Or was it declining in London? I can't remember. It was about 1987.
Probably,
and my mother was saying to me, all the schools were closing down. There just wasn't enough people.
Kids.
Because that was London overspill. People were moving into areas like mine. They were spilling out of London to go into the overspill. Places like Bishop Stortford, Harlow were getting popular. Stevenage, all these little towns that were created, Milton Keynes, towns that were getting created. People were moving out. And then what they did is poured a load more people in.
So, look, so we still have to build a lot more houses. There are more people. We have to build a lot more houses. And then we have to, I think, lift gradually the retirement age.
I do agree with you on that.
And actually, I mean,
but do you agree we should look at the state pension and we should start doing a case by case when it comes to winter fuel allowance? Because a lot of those people do not. They've actually said they're using that winter fuel allowance to heat up their pool.
So the argument against it, which is not the right, this is one of you can't do this argument, which is bad, but it's like
I don't like can't do. I'm always a can do. Always find a way.
So the problem with means testing, and this is I found this in
Costs
government,
money.
is that it costs a lot of money to work out how you test, and there are always cliff edges. There's always one guy on 69 grand who gets the benefit, whatever it is, and then the other person on 70 who doesn't. And so you always create these cliff edges. And of course, for people who are on the margin, on the wrong side, they're saying, well, why does that guy or woman get extra benefits when I have to pay X, Y, and Z? So in a way, it's easier just to give everyone the benefits, even though that may be a bit costlier in terms of your current expenditure.
There's a lot of very wealthy pensioners out there, and there's a lot of very, and the young people are really struggling. They're struggling. They've got no savings, and then all that they keep seeing. And this is what I don't understand. It's Labour, Conservative, it's all the parties that just want to keep increasing that state pension. It's not even like a debate, and I understand it's because old people vote.
They do.
Well, it is exactly
I understand,
that.
yeah.
It is
I mean, you're a councillor.
That's why they won't touch a triple lock.
If you stand as a councillor, and I'm sure you'll have lots of old people in your council ward.
Yeah, because
they're watching you and they say,
those houses
and they're
in that
watching
area.
you and they're saying, what do you mean you're going to cut my state pension?
Because
what
I
are you
care
going to
about
say?
young people.
Would you say that?
care
Would you
about
say
young
that to
people.
them when you're on the doorstep? I'm going to cut your state pension because I care about young people.
I would say that the most important thing is cutting the benefits for people who don't want to work, and then we can assess
Everyone
it. But
agrees
then
with
I would
that.
assess it after
Most
that.
people
I
would
think that
agree.
has to be a national narrative. I think it's also the responsibility of people over the age of 65. My parents are in this category as well. They're well off, but they worked hard, they saved well.
Sure, they did.
They were responsible with
did.
their money, and
But they put into the system. That's the thing.
I don't want to penalise, but
they've
why?
been paying tax
do you think
every
it
year
should be
they've worked.
going up that much every year,
So there's
above
an issue,
inflation rate?
There's an issue with this triple lock.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
But they
most
won't
people-
touch it.
It's politically. I mean, look at what they try to do with the winter fuel payment. I mean, that was the single thing that I think hold the government under the waterline, this Labour government. They said they're Labour Party, they're for, vulnerable people, working people. Oh, we're going to take away the winter fuel payment from 10 million pensioners or however many it was.
Yeah.
And that killed them. That killed them. And then
Yeah.
they stuck to it for 10 months. They said, we've got to do it because we're going to save money. And then in the end, what happened, the local elections were so bad that my understanding is that a whole bunch of people from Scotland, Labour and Wales said, we can't go into the 26 elections with this nonsense around our necks.
Yeah.
So you've got, and that's why they reversed it. It was a political thing.
I told you,
but
it's
it was
a thing
so
that we
unpopular.
can't talk about.
It was so unpopular.
My next question, are low interest rates such a good thing? For me, I think they increase the debt levels, it fuels asset bubbles. This is partly why house prices are now so unaffordable. I just think that with the interest rate, when it's so low, there's more demand on everything. And I'm a bit old-fashioned. I do believe that people should live within their means.
So do you have a credit card?
No.
You don't use a credit card?
I have a credit card only because I have to have it for my work, for business. But no,
Sure.
I've never been in debt in my life.
Is that right?
But we always grew up, you have to live within your means.
Yeah.
And I would say that the sweet spot for interest rates is about 5%.
Wow. Yeah, so historically...
But do you remember when it was 17%?
Yeah, I remember all of that. So historically...
what do you think? Would you like to go back to zero?
No.
Okay.
I think that was a mistake. And the problem with very, very low interest rates is that there are a whole bunch of very inefficient companies. We talk about productivity, and there were these, what were called zombie companies.
Yeah.
Because they were just there, they could borrow as much as they did, they weren't really doing very much, and they weren't very productive. And a lot of people were turning up to work in those zombie companies, and that wasn't getting the economy going. So I think the incentives, when the interest rates are rock bottom, are very low. And as you say, because interest is so low, people would just borrow money.
Fuels asset
They
bubbles.
just borrow, yeah, and
Look at
then
the
they put the
housing
money-
market.
all of that.
The housing
There's no
market
doubt
was two
about that.
reasons. It was high immigration plus low interest
Yeah,
rates.
there's no doubt. So I think you're quite right. And historically, 5% was the rough average.
I think it's a
If
sweet
you
spot,
If you go back to 50, 80 years, 5%, I get that.
I think that's fair, 5%.
It's quite high
No, but it's not really as high as when the 1980s.
No,
it was 17%.
I remember. Yeah, and then when they tried to, George Soros basically bankrupted the Bank of England. They were. Do you remember that? Maybe a bit before your time, but it was 1992, Black Wednesday.
Yes, I do remember.
And they put the interest rates up to about, I can't remember what it was, 17% for a few hours. Yeah. Then it went down to, that's crazy. And a lot of people, at that time, we had sort of negative equity. We're talking about property prices. But, the amount that people had put into their house was more than the value of the house because the house prices fell. And that was very scary for a lot of people. But I think 3-4%.
I'm 5%. Where are you?
Five. Between 4 and a half, 5.
5 is great for savers. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
But that's what we think. The thing is I remember back in the day that if you had just a standard bank account, you would get interest on it. Now it's zero. You can't get it anywhere. You try and put anything. I mean, look what they've done to deals. Yeah, look what they've done to ISA recently. The ISA is terrible.
They don't want you to save. They don't want people. They want people to keep spend. And that's my next topic, which is the cost of living crisis. Sure. This is a little bit controversial. I'm not so sure about this cost of living crisis.
What do you mean? You don't think it exists, or? I mean, it was weaponized by Labour.
So it's what I hear and it's what I see. Okay, so when I go out, everything that's expensive is full. The theatres are full. The hotels I go to are full. The restaurants are full. Flights are full. Salons everywhere down. Beauty treatments aren't cheap, It's absolutely packed. You can hardly get a black cab either. There's a lot of money swishing around still. I do think a lot of it is actually from older people. I've said this, before, that they have a lot of money that they can spend. There just seems to be a lot of money swirling around, and a lot of people said, well, it was after COVID. A lot of people had savings because they didn't travel. Well, that's gone now. Okay, we're talking 5 years later. So I'm looking at this like I appreciate there must be people out there who are really struggling.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying I live in my little bubble in London. This is when I come out of London also. This is when I go to other areas of England. I'm still seeing the same thing. Restaurants are packed. Everything's packed. People just seem to have money. So again, I'm hearing one thing and I'm seeing another.
So I think lots of things are happening here. So I think a lot of the people who are going out are probably borrowing money. They're not like you.
We're going back to not living within our means.
They're living on credit. Yeah. They want to buy stuff for the kids or they want to have a nice night out. They don't have the cash in their pocket to do it.
And it coincides with the rise of things like Klarna, 0% credit loans.
Klarna's great.
PayPal, all these companies are doing all this.
And that's all credit. Yeah. That's all credit.
It's all credit.
I mean, I use Klarna.
There must be a limit to this.
To be fair, if you get these payday loans and all these organisations that have come up, they're pretty accessible. And
but they have to
get in trouble.
But they have to pay the piper at some point, these people who are borrowing.
Well,
write off these debts.
Are there statistics on this, Kwasi? Is there
statistics? There would be. I don't know them.
There must be statistics somewhere to show how much people are getting in debt with regards to credit cards.
There are absolutely those statistics. So you look at debt in the round, not just government debt. You've got, mortgage debt. You've got credit card debt. You've got all these elements. People have personal loans from their banks sometimes. There's all these ranges of debt. And that's through the roof. I mean, I don't think it's at a historic high, but it's not. It's not.
But we've had credit cards for a long time. So when I was growing up, I do come from a wealthy family, not super wealthy, but we had really super wealthy friends. Yeah. And they would go, and we used to think, oh wow, they used to go on 2 holidays a year, and that was something special because everyone else went on 1 holiday. Even the wealthy went on 1 holiday a year. Now I'm seeing people, and I'm like, they're not really in well-paid jobs. They're going 5 holidays a year. So we did have credit cards before. So people, what was the difference to then and now? Is it that people just, want that lifestyle now?
The credit
Is it watching on social media going, I want a bit of that?
The credit limits are much higher now. I mean, I'm staggered at some of the stories I heard. I mean, as an MP, I heard people got into trouble with debts. I mean,
what? For a holiday, for a Range Rover? It's not like, they had to pay the rent or something. That's what I don't understand.
I know someone, I mean, obviously I can't say names. I wouldn't dream of doing that. But, a case in which you have a young lady, probably in her mid-20s. She's earning probably 25, 30 grand a year, something like that. She's got a 20 grand limit on the credit card.
Yeah.
And of course, it's completely maxed out.
Yeah.
And when you drill down in terms of the stuff she bought, It wasn't
crap. It's crap, basically.
It was
beauty treatments #1.
Yeah,
right,
holiday to Tenerife.
Oh God.
You know, $4,000 with some of her mates and whatever.
The holiday thing. This is the new thing. Everyone's got to go on their 5 holidays a year.
And handbags.
Yeah, but as well,
she bought so many handbags.
Yeah,
and that made her happy. But I'm like, you're earning this much. You've got a disposable income.
How is she going to pay it back?
That was the question. That was the problem.
And I think they don't care. I think
it always ends up with OnlyFans.
But it goes back to everything we've been talking about, because in the 90s, similar thing in the early 2000s, I remember I turned 16 in 1994, and I remember my parents were very good with it, and they tried. I was terrible. I got into debt and had credit cards and stuff when I was younger. I was awful with money. I didn't understand it, didn't care. You're working a job, you want to go out with your mates, you want to do things. Right. But I think the people were trained better to save money because it was worth it back then, because you had the interest rates. Right. It was worth putting your money in the bank. It's not now. And what you've got is a lot. I did see a statistic, Kwasi, I don't know if you've heard about this, but I saw a statistic last year. I was doing some stuff about housing, a couple of videos I did. The amount of people in this country that could not survive more than 2 weeks if they had a critical issue is the highest it's ever been in history. i.e., if they had a boiler break or pipes cracked or a problem with their house. Lots of people don't have house insurance anymore. Lots of people don't pay for things that we would have all paid for 10 years ago. Because the cutback is never the important stuff. People will keep their Netflix over house insurance.
Yeah, they will do.
Because house insurance is just money being thrown into stuff.
And also
people
it's kind of quite abstract. People,
yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, my house might burn down, whatever.
Yes.
Whereas the Netflix you can enjoy, you know, day by day. You know,
so there's a very
even
big
that way
shift.
of thinking, even that way of thinking is weird. And maybe it's because it's this unlimited credit that everyone's going.
I think that's a big part of it.
And I guarantee more people live paycheck to paycheck now than we've seen in the last 30 years.
They kind of always did. I remember when I started work in the city about 25 years ago, and they said then, there was a statistic going around, I don't know whether it was true or not, but people used to say the average Briton has about 100 quid in their current account.
Yes.
You know, so that's clearly paycheck. Even then, it was a thing.
But people weren't going on these endless holidays. I mean, as I said, it's a really important point.
I agree with you. I agree.
Very wealthy people, they weren't going out to dinner that often.
They might do 1 or 2 holidays.
Yes, and that was the wealthy ones, and they would go out for dinner once every 3 weeks. They weren't ordering Deliveroo and ordering food.
Didn't have Deliveroo.
All of this, do you think that some of it is because people have bought a house and they just watch that price going up and up, that it makes them feel rich, it makes them feel that they have money?
Yeah, there's a bit of that. So they, you know, and some of them you will borrow against the house. I mean, you can do that. Yeah. You can take, you know, if you're...
You just can't stop lending money to the banks, can they? They can't stop. Yeah. But when you want your interest rate for your savings, oof, no.
Yeah, it goes. And that's the thing is, going back to what we were saying earlier, when you start looking at things like, free, buy it now, pay in 3 months' time, all this stuff exists.
And that's quite new.
And it's exponential.
That's quite new. That buy in 3 months' time, or buy next month, or buy in 3 instalments. That's very new. I mean,
how new is it?
Probably 5-10 years.
Yes.
It's not something that existed, you know, when we were growing up.
Not 20 years ago. I'm sure I remember something like this.
You could
look at Klarna. That's been around for 6 years. 7 years?
No, that's.
I mean, it's a recent time.
Buy now, pay later.
Yeah,
it's basically buy now, pay later. Yeah.
So all of this, but it's a more fundamental argument, because I think a lot of people, younger people, are thinking, well, I can never buy a house.
Yes.
Because we used to save up. I remember saving up to buy a flat.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to go out and, you know...
Because that was a very 90s, 2000s.
Quite interesting. My personal anecdote, my brother, he was working in banking and he made a lot of money, and he was always, because he's a bit older than me, and he always thought that he visualised that he was going to have the house with its own driveway. And he got a terraced house with that same money, and he's just like... And I was like, listen, you're one of the lucky ones, because you bought in 2009 or something. You've no idea about how bad it is now.
Sure.
But it just shows how our expectations have been changed. So, and I think it's sad. I have 2 more questions. This one is, let's talk about the rise in corporation tax and the rise in business rates. For me, it's clear that this is just going to drain investment, and it's going to kill, which is really important, the British entrepreneurial spirit. That's really important. That makes Britain quite unique, actually, from a lot of its other European neighbours. We keep losing our best people, and let's face it, we're replacing them with low-skilled workers who need benefit top-ups. Okay, I'm not saying that they're all not working.
No, but I get that.
Yeah. Now, how do you see this unfolding?
So I'm very, while Labour are in power, I'm very pessimistic. So they've got another 3.5 years. And I don't see them changing. And I'll tell you why. I know Rachel Reeves. She's not an out-and-out socialist. She's a lefty. She's a, and at the beginning of the year, she was saying we can't lift the cap on two children because we can't afford it, the benefit cap. So that, but then she was forced by the left-wing MPs basically to do that. She threw in the towel on that. And if you look at the polls, they've, Reform are on about 30 roughly, Labour on 20, but the Greens are on 15, 16%. And so they've worked out they're not going to get Reform voters that easily. Do you remember he said island of strangers?
Yeah.
That was like trying to get Reform. That was aimed at the Reform voters.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah.
And then a month later he said, I didn't mean to say that. Because it clearly wasn't working.
Yeah.
So now, instead of trying to go right, crudely, they're going left. Because that's where all the threats are. You've got the Corbyn...
How's this going to unfold? Like I said...
You've got the Corbyn nonsense.
Wealthy people are leaving. If people are not going to expand their businesses because they're being penalised for doing that, and we're just bringing in more and more people who need benefit top-ups, how's this going to unfold? What's going to be like in 3 years?
I think what will happen is that this will continue. Look at the mansion tax. It brings in 400 million in 2030. And the whole point of the budget was they rose 26 billion. So 26 billion compared to 400 million, it's like it's like $4,000 compared to
And hasn't it just come out recently the interest now on Labour's spending is between two and 7 billion a year extra?
Yeah.
So everything that they're saying they're doing to save money is going out the door elsewhere.
So that said to me, when they talk about mansion tax, they're not looking to raise money.
No,
it's a piddling amount.
What
they're doing is trying to appeal to the left.
Yeah.
Mansion tax, sting the rich. Let's whack up the taxes on rich people.
But there will be no money left if people...
I agree with you. Yeah. But I'm trying to explain the dynamic. I'm trying to explain what's going on politically. I think they're moving left. I think Starmer and Reeves want to save their own skins. So that's why they've got to go left. And they think if they've got any chance of trying to get back into power, which they want to, one assumes, they're going to have to appeal to Green voters and all the left. They don't care about Reform voters. They don't care about Tory voters. They're just looking to appeal to left-wing voters to get enough to get back in. I don't think it'll work, but that's clearly what the strategy they're playing. And as long as they're on that strategy, they're going to keep taxes up. They're not going to cut benefits. They're not. I think they're going to go quite easy on immigration. They're going to talk tough on immigration.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't think they're going to do anything.
Just like the Conservatives, they're just going to be easy on immigration.
Well, I think they'll just maintain the split. They want to maintain the division. Keep calling everyone out as far right, which appeases the left activists,
that's right.
Gets them more on side. You see your party basically making an absolute disaster of themselves.
No, I think there are flickers of hope there. I think.
Do you think so?
I think Kemi did a good job going after Rachel responding to the budget. I think she did a very good job with that.
No, I didn't mean your party. I meant your Corbyn.
Oh, your party.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? The name we condemn.
I thought you were talking about the Tories. They're a joke.
Corbyn and it's a joke.
I mean, those guys.
Yeah.
That's like the Monty Python thing. The people trying to.
Hold on, I'm not going to let you off that easily. Not you specifically, but the Tories. They are the ones who raised corporation tax. They're the ones who had the Boris wave. They let in 1.3 million. Migrants into this country. It's the same. So Labour, I always said Labour are just doing this warp speed. The destruction's warp speed with Labour.
So the Tories weren't perfect, but by any means. Okay?
By any means.
But the road we're going down now is just pure welfarism.
Yeah.
And that means you're taxing rich people and driving them out of the country. And you're in order to pay for a welfare state, which is bloated beyond. It's not sustainable. Even the Labour ministers, when they tried to bring in the reform, they were on the Today programme and all the media saying, we can't sustain this. And then they had to give in because the backbenchers said, you're not doing this. We're not going to let you do this. And then they threw in the towel.
One of the things I always maintain, Kwasi, is a lot of people generally tend to look at political parties and they'll look at them as this policy, this policy, this policy. I've always adopted the notion that you should compare policies. So if you look, just live with me for a second. Two-child benefit cap. What they've done recently, where Starmer stood at McLaren and basically said that they want to employers to start encouraging people to go with the unions. So add that on top. Now they've come out and said there's something about bereavement, about extended family bereavement, giving people a week off. You start putting all these together and piecing this all together. The business national insurance rates, compressing small businesses, raising apprentices minimum wage, raising national minimum wage, pressurises small businesses. So effectively what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is squeeze more small business to the point it's not worth it, push people into benefits, that maintains their votes, and it's all about
But who's going to be paying for those benefits if you keep...
The middle class, anyone between...
They're going to increase taxes. They're going to increase taxes.
Yes.
That's definitely... So
what's
going to
happen?
happen?
Increased taxes.
They have, but they will do so more.
Last
year, I said, you know, she said, oh, well, this is a one-off to right the economy.
It will come again in spring.
And then this year she did pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
She'll do exactly the same thing next year.
Yes.
She'll raise taxes.
Do you think we're living under socialism now?
It's pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, the tendency is towards socialism, which I can't stand.
Yeah.
But it's all this idea that, you know, if you're rich, you're a bad guy or woman, and we've got to tax you to pay for people, not poor people who are working, people who aren't working. They're not doing any work.
I know.
They're not doing anything.
They've got ADHD.
Or whatever. They've got mental, whatever. All of that.
They've got anxiety about work. Don't we all?
We can't afford it. We can't afford it as a country. And they realise
I don't know how they're going to afford it, but you're saying it's going to be the middle class. It's not going to be people like me who own small business. It's going to be income tax.
So I've always thought if you earn between, and bear with me, between about 40 grand and 500,000, which is a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money. That's the sweet spot for raising tax. Because those guys, even the ones at the top end of that range, they're not very mobile. They're not going to just go to Dubai. They've got kids, they've got families. They're very rooted in the country. So it's from a tax revenue point of view, that's perfect. Because they're not going anywhere. You can just raise their tax.
They're cash cows, aren't they?
Pretty much. I mean, that's. And so for people in that mix, roughly, I think taxes are going to go up. 100%.
But the problem is
and there's your reform voters right there, I think.
You extended that from 40 grand up to 500. The reality is 20 million people in this country sit between 40 and 80.
Yeah, that's right. And how much?
40 and 80.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just did the whole gamut because people at the, above 500.
Because that's the top, that's the top 1%.
That's right. So, I mean, I could, but the general point is people in that big middle, the ones who are getting up, commuting, getting the train, all of that, are the ones who are going to be paying for everything else. And that's...
plus your self-employed builders, plumbers, sparkies,
all of those
anyone who's earning,
And I think, and the bit that I...
You're being punished.
Apprentices.
You're being punished for hard work.
Yes.
Sure, and as far as the tax policy is concerned, and I'm sure Labour think like this, there was a thing in the summer where they said anyone over 46 grand, earning over 46 grand a year is rich, so we're going to come after you. That was basically the assumption. And that's a hell of a lot of people.
Have they seen the price of houses recently?
No.
But it's utter nonsense because the shift in, going back to other statistics that get published, is that a modern family needs to be earning £85,000.
But where is that? That can't be the same across the country.
I think it's just moderate. It's just
Southeast.
It's probably the south. I mean, the southeast is very different from other parts of the.
Everything's getting very expensive.
But it's definitely more the middle class.
Sure. Yeah. So the middle class, and then with the benefit culture, you can now. I mean, when disability allowance was introduced, it was the rewards. You could see who was disabled. You could see.
I know, but the Conservatives again, they brought in
the mental.
and they brought in, having to, because of COVID, they brought in having to do the assessments via Zoom.
Yep.
Sure.
And now we don't need to do that. You need to have someone in person looking at this person, saying if they've got a disability
I think the men, because you can't prove. I mean, I'm not belittling mental health issues. I mean, they're very serious. But if someone says,
some of them,
I suffer from anxiety at work.
We all do.
Cool. I mean, that's insane.
As soon as that alarm bell goes off, I've got anxiety.
yeah. And then that stuff is crazy.
This has got to be cut
and
completely.
to be fair to Labour, I'm not always fair to them, but they did try and cut that, but they failed.
Yeah, I know. I was supportive of that. I thought, oh my God, Labour are coming out with something I agree with.
And then of course the backbenchers said, you're not doing that. We're going to rebel. And then they took fright. They panicked, as we were talking about.
But is it really the backbenchers or more the NEC? It's the NEC. Really.
So they're kind of part of the same thing.
Yeah.
They're kind of Labour backbenchers.
It's the Labour back model, isn't it? It's their rear guard.
That's right. And their knee-jerk reaction is always to increase benefits. Always.
Which comes directly from socialism, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what.
But even Starmer came out in the Telegraph the other day. He did an interview and came out and said that he's still trying to win the centrist vote because they believe they're a centrist party.
I think that's,
with socialist.
I think they've given up on that.
I don't think they have any identity.
No,
they certainly do not have the identity that they had in the 70s with the winter of discontent, disaster. Thatcher comes in. They try to rebrand themselves a number of times. Under Corbyn, they went,
full left.
Or full left. then
But people would say about Corbyn, I mean, I knew Jeremy Corbyn in the House of Commons. He always said the same thing. There was conviction, whether you agreed with him or not.
No, I know.
Do you know what I mean? He was honest about his beliefs.
Yeah.
And he was an internationalist, he was a socialist, he was influenced by Marx and all this
It's
sort
like
of
Thatcher's, same thing. A lot of people don't like her policies, but I think she did it for this country.
Yeah, so the
country.
problem someone like Starmer has, no one knows what he believes in.
No.
And if your whole shtick
I'm
is...
finding all of them like that. I found Rishi Sunak like this, like puppets almost.
I think Rishi show his true colours when he came to the end, last month. When they were doing the debates, when Starmer and him were doing the debates over the general election, then you really saw who... And I think he was restricted. I don't know if you agree with this. I think the reins were put on him a little bit. I think he said some things towards the end...
Well, he said they were going to put up taxes.
Yeah, he said he came
because he knew that if he came back in, he would have put up taxes. Because that's what the OBR... I'm sure that was the case. And he put them up, once they got rid of us, they lowered the rate at which you pay 45p from 150 to 125 grand.
Yeah.
They put up corporation tax from 19 to 25p.
That was a shock.
Because that was what the OBR or whoever
That's
it was.
the thanks that small businesses
and
got.
it was, they tightened the non-dom stuff. So,
But that again comes from the OBR, the Bank of England, and
the establishment. So I think that with Starmer...
your point then is how much say do these parties have really?
Nothing. I don't think they do. I think if you actually look at political, and this is no disrespect, but if you look at a political party sitting in Parliament, and I think this gets I think actually, this is my genuine opinion, I think Reeves and Starmer are very bad actors. Because I think when they're quizzed and pressed on things, it comes out more the repetitive line. Oh, look at what we did with GP appointments. The numbers just come out, and it's repetitive. Scripted over and over and over. Because they don't actually know what they're talking about. I think they've got to a point where they don't know what they stand for and what they believe in.
So who's running the country?
The NEC, the OBR, the IFS, and any other number of... we can go down roads here.
So I think what happened was that all they wanted to do was to get the Tories out. That was their one thing.
I don't think they had any
idea. Once they got the Tories out, I don't think they had much of a clue about what they wanted to do.
Do you think they're going to do everything then in their power to make sure reform don't get in?
So now they're at 20% in the polls, 19%, okay? And they're sitting there. I've been there in Downing Street, and you're on 20%, and you think, how on earth am I going to get to 25%? You're not thinking about how am I going to win the election. You're thinking, how do I get out of this hole? I've got 3 years, and I think the most obvious thing for them to do, I'm putting myself into how they think.
Reform.
No, the Labour government.
Oh, the Labour government. Okay.
They're going to think, actually...
To attack reform and...
Do you know what? I don't think they're bothered with it. I think they're totally focused on their left.
I agree.
I think they're totally focused on their left.
They're not worried about reform anymore.
They tried the reform thing. They flirted with
reform. We're in a bit of a bubble,
strangers.
me and you. There are a lot of people out there who vote, but even people in my family who vote Green, I found out. I had to walk out.
They're on 16%.
Yeah.
And you're
doing well.
Party, you're
people
on 90%.
Care about net zero. They care about the environment. They care about trans. They like migrants. You think it's like we're in a bubble. There's a lot of people out there.
If you're sitting in number 10 and you're one of Keir Starmer's advisors, you're saying, look, there are a whole bunch of people who are voting Lib Dem and Green. Isn't it easier to get their votes than to appeal to the reform votes?
Yeah.
That's what they're being...
Yeah, I think my personal opinion is anyone who's a reform voter just sees Labour and the Tories as exactly the same thing. 28 years, they've both been 20, Labour now have had 28, well actually half a year longer than what the Tories had. They're 14 and a half years now, if you count the last two sets of governments in. So I think any reform voter, whatever Advance are going to do, but of reform voters, the vast majority of reform voters, totally anti-establishment, anti-liberal, anti-Labour, anti-conservative, not anti-conservative, anti-Tory is what they see them as. And then exactly what Kwasi said, you've got this. I mean, I was staggered by the Green Rise, which literally happened in 3 months.
It happened about 4 months.
That's good that they've got this guy. Polanski.
But he's charismatic. People
exactly,
like him.
And he's clickbait. Young people love him.
Yeah.
I was like, what a genius move this is. Everyone else said he was a fool. I said, no.
What, and he's a hypnotist?
Yeah.
You didn't ever take his services, did you? I think a lot of your viewers don't know what we're talking about.
I think they will.
Anyway, last topic is, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, sure.
Talk crypto to me because I don't know a lot about it.
So I founded, in the process of founding, a Bitcoin treasury business. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. And all the things we're talking about, terms of cost of living, in terms of inflation, in terms of trying to preserve your wealth, getting interest rates to give you a return. A lot of that is related to cryptocurrency because the view, certainly with Bitcoin, is that it's appreciated so much against the dollar. And it goes up and down. It's a very volatile commodity, it is classified as. But over time, it's something which will hold its value against things like the dollar, they're printing it. They're printing sterling, they're printing the pounds, they're printing yen. They're doing all of these things to pay for the welfare state, to borrow money, all of that. And many people see crypto as a way of hedging against that kind of inflation or depreciation of the currency. Now, there are about 4 different ways you can do that to stop your money actually just disappearing. You can buy shares, but they're very volatile, like crypto. You can buy property, but there are all sorts of taxes and policy around property, as you know. You can buy gold. Gold has done brilliantly this year, 50%.
Yes, I've heard this, yeah.
And some people are saying, rightly in my view, that a way to protect our savings, protect our wealth, is to invest in crypto. Now, it's not a steady ride. It does go up and down. But over time, I think that's the surest way of preserving wealth. So that's why I'm interested in it. And also, people say you were Chancellor for 5 weeks, whatever, this, that, and the other. I'm actually a money. I wrote about the history of money. I've written a book called War and Gold. Yeah, War and Gold. It was published 2014. And I'm very, very interested. It's like a hobby of mine. So I managed to combine my hobby, my experience in government, to do this crypto venture, Bitcoin venture.
I know Bitcoin's done very well. That's all I can
I have a
say.
question. So I dabbled in crypto a little while ago, but I've done the research around it. Crypto is considered the playground of programmable money.
Yeah, sure.
So a lot of people would argue that, because this is something that's concerned me about reform recently. Reform have definitely gone pro-crypto.
That's right.
Massively pro-crypto.
That's right.
Looking at what Labour are doing, think about digital ID, net zero.
Sure.
Crypto or CBDC is the next layer on top.
Okay.
So is anyone adopting crypto? I know the Bank of England don't regulate crypto. It's the FSA. FCA regulate it.
Kind of.
Treasury maybe do some of the policy on it. So crypto's kind of independent at the moment, but as I said, it's also kind of a playground into central bank digital currency. Is that the worry that if a government was then to adopt crypto in any form or start regulating it more, that it just descends into central bank digital currency?
So I think there are lots of things because it's a decentralized network.
Yes.
So
But that's what CBDC will do is...
So, something like Bitcoin, governments can regulate it, but, it's a global thing. You can buy Bitcoin in Brazil, you can buy Bitcoin wherever. And that's one of the things that people like about it. Because actually, a government can do anything. If you've got a bank account, the bank can freeze the bank account.
What about premium bonds?
So premium bonds.
That's where a lot of my money is, because they're protected up to $1 million.
But and you don't pay tax on it.
Yeah,
but the interest you get on it, unless you win the jackpot.
No, sorry, excuse me, my mistake. So
sorry.
you've got premium bonds. The maximum you can put in it is 50
grand.
But I win on that 50 grand on average per month, 400 a month.
No.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'd be amazed if you get 2%.
Sorry, 300 a month, let's say, on average.
But that's still a great return.
Huge, for 50,000.
That's still a great return.
But I was talking about NS&I.
Yeah, what, gilts?
Yeah, so basically you can put your money in there and it's protected up to 1 million.
And is it...
So if the whole banking system collapsed, it would still be protected.
Yeah, you would
Whereas
get
in a normal bank account, it's 85,000.
That's
max,
right, that's right. But you still got the kind of...
And you've got good interest rates in NS&I right now. What do you think they are?
I don't know, I wouldn't know what they are.
So fixed... 4.1.
Yeah, it's not a bad.
But this is the thing.
Yeah.
Average normal person doesn't have the funding to.
No.
This is the thing.
You say I'm not an average normal person.
No. But obviously
you've been very successful. You're very liquid.
You've after your money.
You're very liquid.
Yeah. When you're talking to normal
don't buy bags.
day-to-day people. Well, true. That's yes, and that's a very good point.
And you don't put them on the credit card.
Putting it on the credit card and getting payday loans.
Or whatever. Yves Saint Laurent.
Yeah.
That's what this friend. Well,
I have Christian Dior, and Louis Vuitton, but it's
yeah,
my money.
You're paying
when you
from
can
your cash.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
look, so the whole. I'm going back to the crypto point. Is generally, and it's the same with your bonds. Anything denominated in sterling, in dollars, in euros, whatever the currency is, the inflation just devastates that. And we've been talking the whole program about that. House prices going through the roof. Cars valuation of cars going through the roof because it's credit and all that kind of business. And that crypto is a way of trying to protect yourself against inflation. And actually, I'm amazed if you look at the stats. I think it's something like 9 million people in the UK are exposed to crypto, and that's just organic. You know, the government hasn't promoted it.
It's definitely popular against a younger generation.
Yeah, anyone under 45
and I
is
think,
likely
to
to be engaged with that.
One Bitcoin now is how much?
Yeah, but you've got
like 90,000. Who's going to afford that? Who's 25?
Ethereum,
you've got loads of different.
There's loads of different.
But Bitcoin's the big one. That's the one that's doing this best.
It is. It's done, and it's the longest established.
Yeah.
Christ, I remember when Bitcoin was like £1 for
Really, I don't remember that.
Dear.
I think it was like
my ex-husband sold. Oh God, he had loads. He sold it in a dip.
There's stories of people that used to buy these. I think I actually did buy 10 Bitcoin around about.
That's
nothing
$1 million.
because
Oh my God, tell us the story.
But at the time, I just saw this thing and someone was like, yeah, Bitcoin's supposed to be the next big thing, and you just spend a tenner on it. Right, I'll buy 10 Bitcoin for £1 each. Someone sent me an email, they chuck it, but do you know how many people there are in the world that did this? Hundreds of thousands of people did this. There was guys that traded them in for Domino's pizzas.
Yeah, that's right. That was 12 years ago. Yeah.
There was all these stories.
Can I ask you a question, Kwasi? Should I, as an 18th birthday present, buy my son a Bitcoin?
I would do that.
Yeah.
He'd be like, come on, Mum, what kind of Roblox or
by
something?
the time he's 35,
I don't want Bitcoin.
He will say, "You're my favourite auntie."
Yeah.
Auntie?
You said your nephew.
No, my son.
Oh, your son.
Yeah.
Well, you can't be your favourite mother. I mean, he's only got one. I didn't. He'd be very grateful. I mean, just imagine
that or a flat. What should I pick?
Ooh, tricky one. I mean, I would go for the Bitcoin because I think it's going to appreciate more. I don't think property's going to go up that much.
Yeah, but he needs somewhere to live.
That's true. So that's a
interesting.
physical.
Then he has to cash the Bitcoin in to buy. Yeah, it's
such a hard life, isn't it? These choices.
I think with the Bitcoin,
Bitcoin or a flat.
I think he could buy 3 properties with the Bitcoin, how it appreciates. Okay. Whereas with the flat, he's just got 1 flat, which will appreciate a bit. I mean, I don't deny that.
Well, that's it for today. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming on to the show. And thank you at home for watching. See you soon.